My 23M boyfriend, 24M, won't talk to me and is suggesting we break up after I saw his burn scars. Throwaway cause my boyfriend follows my actual account. My boyfriend's house burned down when he was young after electrical issues never disclosed to his parents. He and his father were severely burned. They lived but his mother died. He and I met in freshman year and became best friends in sophomore year. I've never seen his scars in full good view, until now. Only small glimpses if his shirt rode up and he'd quickly fix his shirt to cover it. He always hides his scars, constantly wearing jeans/pants and long sleeve shirts even if it's super hot outside. His scars start from the bottom half of his ribs to just above his knees, so this is the only way he can cover them. Even bringing his pajamas into the bathroom to change into. He's done this ever since I've known him. Even after sex, which we do in the dark. Which doesn't bother me because I know this is what makes him comfortable. He'll immediately get changed back into his clothes back on before we cuddle or do anything else. Once again, I'm fine with this, just trying to explain that I know how uncomfortable he is with his scars. I know he is ashamed of his scars, and when we were friends I was fiercely protective and always changed the subject if his scars got brought up, which he always thanked me for. I have never and would never ask or pressure him to show me. I don't judge his scars or think they're ugly. I thought he knew I wouldn't judge him because some of his dad's burn scars are impossible to cover up. One of them covering half his face, and never once have I judged or even thought his dad's scars were disturbing. He's a very handsome man, they both are, which is why I'm so confused by his reaction and accusations of this. I work weird hours, I'm a nurse. So sometimes I can come home at 9 AM, sometimes 5 PM, sometimes the ass crack of dawn. I went to immediately take a shower. I was in airplane mode and was completely exhausted. I opened the bathroom door and he was getting changed. I saw his scars. I'll admit, I stared not because I thought they were gross but because I was having an oh shit moment knowing I fucked up. He and I have been dating for quite almost a year. I had to move into his place a while ago after my parents went no contact and cut me off after I came out and told them I was dating BF. Long story short, toxic Bible thumping parents. So I'm not used to sharing an apartment with someone. He blew up at me, yelling at me to get out. Note, he has never yelled at me before this. Sure, we got in spats and small fights where he raised his voice, but he never full on yelled. I shut the door and he went quiet. I was pacing in the kitchen for almost 20 to 30 minutes when he quickly walked past me trying to leave. When I stopped him, he was pissed, yelling at me that he thought I would know how to knock by now and questioning if I did it on purpose. I was trying to explain while trying not to cry because I saw how red his eyes were. I knew he was crying. I couldn't say anything, just made incomprehensible sobs as I tried to explain that I was, but he wouldn't listen and left without saying where he was going. I'm heartbroken. He texted me an hour ago with a single message of "I'm not coming home. Tomorrow we can talk about our relationship." I immediately messaged him back asking what that meant and spent several minutes watching that little text incoming bubble bob in and out before he texted whether we should stay together. As if it was obvious. I have no idea what to do. He's my boyfriend, my best friend of 8 years. What the hell do I do? I love him, I can't imagine life without him. His dad is like a father to me. I have nowhere else to go if he kicks me out. Above it all, I can't lose him. I'd rather have to go through coming out again than lose him. How do I make it up to him? How do I let him know that I'm sorry and never meant to make him uncomfortable? Edit, u/Valor Fox Potatoes brought up a good point that made me think so I should specify. He was bullied for his scars. A huge bully of his from middle school always sniffed the air when he entered a class and said, really loudly, "Ew, you guys smell that? Smells like bacon's burning." He was a little chubby in middle school. Every time he entered a room then laughed. Also, in small glances, a lot of our guy friends would say how cool it is. Looks like Deadpool's skin. They were trying to be nice but failed horribly, hence my fierce protectiveness over anyone bringing it up. And his family always emphasized it doesn't matter what he looked like on the outside because he was both a day I fucked up on the inside. Seriously, WTF? He's also mentioned having a really bad ex-GF who had issues with his scars in the past but never went too deep into it, and I'm starting to wonder if that's what his overreaction and suggestion of a breakup was rooted in. I'm taking mental notes on all the comments on what's the best way to approach this, and they're really helping, thank you. Update, So I tried to update this yesterday but can't post within 48 hours, so I was going to wait, but someone DM'd me to suggest I just put the update here, so here we go. A lot of your comments were very helpful and I didn't get to reply to some, but I read them. Most of them were along the same basis: get him to go to therapy and make sure he knows his scars aren't an issue for me, as well as setting up a place to stay in the worst case scenario that he kicked me out. Spoiler alert, that did not happen. I didn't sleep a lot last night, and based on some comments, thank you I decided to send a text that I love him and his scars don't bother me, so that it could relieve some tension. He didn't respond to that, but he came back in the morning. We talked for hours, where it started with me apologizing for walking in on him and that I didn't mean to. He admitted that he knew that and apologized for yelling. I suggested we get locks on doors and he seemed pretty happy about that. To clear the air, I asked him about the whether we should stay together text and if it was rooted in his XGF, basically asking if she broke up with him over that. He admitted that he thought she didn't mind his scars and took his shirt off in front of her. She decided to gasp and start making a big deal about how he cheated her and that he made it seem like the scars weren't that bad and broke up with him. I have a newfound hatred for her now. He said he knew it wasn't an excuse, but his brain immediately went to that and he freaked out. I asked if he wanted to break up and he was just trying to find an excuse, and he quickly said no, specifying that he was just trying to give me an out if I wanted it. When I tell you I was relieved. He asked if I wasn't disgusted why I stared, and I said that I had a no shit moment of panic knowing I fucked up. He felt awful and apologized for making me feel so uncomfortable in our home. Every time he says our home I have a serotonin high, and that he tried to work on being more comfortable with his scar.s. That's when I suggested therapy. He instantly got defensive, saying that he already had therapy and it didn't work very well. I pointed out that the way he wants us to live isn't healthy, that we can have locks and a knock before entering policy, but him expecting me to never see him naked was unfair to both of us. That it was his insecurities getting worse and me enabling it. He was dismissive of these points, saying how it wouldn't change things, it didn't work the first time, why would it work now? I pointed out how he almost threw out a 9-year-old relationship over me accidentally walking in on him. He tried to say that locks would help stop that from happening again, me walking in on him, not him throwing out the relationship, and I said it might, but I don't want you walking on eggshells either. I want you to be comfortable with me. I want you to trust me. He begrudgingly agreed to talk to his dad about what therapist he went to and going to see them. I'm going to text his dad just to make sure he does this in a few days. I also repeated a suggestion that other people suggested about getting tattoos or going to couples counseling, and he just stared. He asked something along the lines, why do you care about seeing my scars so much? You didn't care before. Not mean or aggressive, just genuine confusion. I kinda laughed awkwardly and said I thought that you would show me on your own when you're ready, but I don't know about that anymore. Baby, I love you, but I don't want you to feel like you have to hide your scars from me. Nor do I want you to worry about me breaking up with you over seeing your scars. I love all of you, including your scars. He started crying. Wasn't the first time in the conversation, tons of tears shed on both ends, and I comforted him. He said he didn't want me to be stressed out in our home and that he was sorry. He was a lot more open to couples counseling than personal therapy, which was a half win that I'll take, for now. We talked about our future some more, and I asked if he ever thought that he'd be comfortable with me seeing his scars. He said that he wants to show me, but he's not ready yet. I was happy to accept that, especially since he's agreed to couples counseling and therapy. I am so proud of him. I've summarized a lot here, but once again this was a very long talk. We got dinner and slept, which we both really needed. And as of today I'm doing research on couple therapists while he went to work. Long story short, we are getting on a better path with a plan for the future where I can see his scars. I won't be showing him this post because quite a few comments were pretty rough on him, and he doesn't deserve to read that for a having reasonable breakdown. Lord knows that man has dealt with plenty of my breakdowns. Thank you everyone for the suggestions and support. All the hug awards made my day, so thank you. Okay, here is my advice. Wait for that conversation tomorrow and then tell him 1. That you didn't mean to and are sorry for not knocking. 2. That you respect his privacy and don't want to pressure him or anything. 3. That the scars weren't a deal breaker before you fell in love and sure as hell aren't now. 4. That you want to stay together. The ball is in his court after that. I would give him some space to process things, and when you do talk tomorrow try to calmly explain your side of the story. He is very self-conscious of these burns, and maybe perceived you to be starting/judging, which would explain his harsh reaction. You are probably the only person to have seen them clearly in a long time, and he's probably going to need some time to think. It was an honest mistake, and you didn't mean to stare or upset him. It was simply a surprise to you as you have never seen that part of him. You have been incredibly tolerant of his issues with it and clearly care a great deal about him. Hopefully if you explain these things clearly and calmly, he will see it from your perspective. Best of luck to you, I hope everything works out okay. The way I see it, you essentially have two options. 1. Accept that his trauma is so deep that he cannot handle letting anyone see him the way he looks now and agree to leave him. 2. Acknowledge the trauma he feels, reassure him you love him and urge him to get therapy for said trauma. Based on your post, you're probably going to go with option number 2. I would you too if I were in your position, but that option is probably also the hardest one. You cannot remain in a relationship with someone who doesn't allow you to know him and see him the way he is. I know it's technically just scars, but, to me, those scars are part of who he is and he's hiding that part from you even though you have been there for him for 8 years. Even if he were to find someone else, he's not going to be able to hide his scars forever. He will inevitably have to show them to someone. If he can't, he needs therapy to deal with the fact that his self-worth doesn't depend on whether he has these scars. As hard as it may be for you to understand, as someone who just loves him for who he is, your love of him is simply not enough. His self-worth is obviously tied to these scars and that's something he needs to unravel with a professional. Most definitely gonna go with choice number 2, or at least try to. The only people to see his scars are doctors and his dad, when he was young, and even then he was extremely reluctant and gets uppity about it. I feel stupid for never really thinking to push for him to get therapy. I always thought it was just an insecurity. First, give him time to cool down. He's extremely embarrassed and his immediate reaction is to be defensive. You need to talk to him. You say you're so sorry for violating his privacy. You of course would never do that on purpose and hope he knows you love and respect him enough not to have done that on purpose. You will of course continue to be careful and respectful of him and his space, but you also hope he knows you well enough after almost a decade to know you wouldn't do it on purpose. Then you let him do what he wants. But don't make it about the scars. I think he was lashing out in embarrassment too. Thank you. Are you sure he didn't default to thinking you will want to break up with him because of the scars? If they so heavily affect his self-esteem, he may believe since you saw him that will be the inevitable conclusion. He may feel like he is hideous, even if you know he is not, and that you can't possibly want to stay in a relationship with him now. This is just wild guessing, but I wanted to put it out there. Otherwise all I would do is send a text saying you are sorry for walking in on him, that you were on autopilot after a long day, that you love him but will give him his space if he needs it until he feels like he would like to talk. Then I would just leave him alone. He has to process it. That's what I'm starting to think. He and I were hanging out, before we were dating, with a few other friends. He was quite tipsy and we were all talking about bad exes. He mentioned having a really bad ex-GF who had issues with his scars, but I changed the subject when people asked him to elaborate. I'm starting to wonder if that's what his overreaction and suggestion of a breakup was rooted in. Like a self-defense thing? My daughter, 17F, returned from her boyfriend's, 16M, house with a clear red mark on her cheek that looks to me like a slap mark. She says it's a rash, but I find that hard to believe. Should I interfere even without proof, or let this go and keep a closer eye on their relationship in future? Update: thanks so much for all the advice. I took a lot of it on board. I provided an update of the situation here. You have all been supportive. I was expecting nasty, judgmental comments, but I didn't really get any. A few humorous ones though. I'm a single mother, 46, and we're based in New York, moved here a couple of years ago from the UK. My daughter's been dating this boy for about 6 months, and I saw no problems until this incident a couple of days ago. He is very polite to me and very good to her, kept telling her how pretty she is and how much he loved her British accent, etc. etc. You know, the way teen dating is. She's been very happy too. She had trouble making friends after moving but now seems much happier. So after Boxing Day she asked if she could spend the night with her BF. It was the first time she was spending the night there, and after checking his parents were home I agreed. She went to his place a couple of days ago and came back yesterday. The moment she walked in, I noticed it. Clear red mark on her right cheek that I thought was shaped like the fingers of a hand. When I touched her cheek gently she winced and it looked like a bruise was forming exactly as it might if she had been hit there. And this may sound insignificant, but her BF is left-handed, so her right cheek would be the natural side of her face to hit if he wanted to slap her with his stronger left hand. And for one slap to leave finger marks, he would have had to hit her cheek pretty firmly, not playfully. I asked her what happened and she said it was some skin allergy, which I find difficult to accept. She kept talking about how much fun she had and whether she could go again sometime. Now today, that bruise has gone down, just like a bruise from a slap would, but unlike a rash. I don't want to upset her, but I have never hit her, and especially not on the face. I can't bear the thought that some boy is hitting her. Both today I fucked up her face and using it as an outlet for his anger. But I have zero proof, and she isn't complaining. Can I do anything or could I just be mistaken? Lose weight or no baby ultimatum. My 32F husband, 33M, together 15 years, has given me an ultimatum of show me you are dedicated to losing weight and we can have another baby. I've steadily been gaining weight since leaving high school and have plateaued at 250 pounds, 5 feet 6 inches height. It took us almost 3 years to get pregnant, and the end of my pregnancy had a health scare due to preeclampsia. But up until my daughter was born, I was diligent about only gaining the minimum amount of weight and we had a healthy baby. Now we want another baby but he is demanding I try to lose weight so we don't have another health scare. I already have super low self-esteem and getting an ultimatum like this just feels so defeating. To be honest, losing weight has been the hardest thing I've ever had to do. How should I respond? I'm afraid this may break our marriage if we can't see eye to eye. Stop arguing about it.